Let's talk about the rugby now then, because, Gertie, I'm just going to put it straight to you, because you've been really critical of George Ford in the past. Where does this performance rank in the list of his best, and how important is he now to England going forward?
Well, straight in with the big question. Let's peel back and talk about the game. And going into that game, Jim Hamilton said he could feel it, he could see it, he'd seen enough for England. we were still trying to work out what he'd seen.
Yeah, cheers for that. The clip went out. I was like, well, did I really say that? But I had to own it, and I believed it.
The way the boys performed now, let's rewind. Obviously, we're going to get onto George Ford, and I said it on Twitter, Instagram. He was out of this world. Best ever performance I've seen from him in an England jersey. Up there with actually what he did against the All Blacks in the 2019 World Cup. But the whole performance, now, let's be honest, England have been poor, and we've said it. And they've been coming out saying, look, we've got a performance in us. We're going the right way. We're going to get better next week. And we did. We saw bite. Everyone was sort of hammering Kevin Sinfield for his defence. And then, obviously, Tom Curry gets sent off in the second, third minute, whenever it was. And we can debate that to the cowsheds and back. But my opinion was it is a red card. And we can get onto the intricacies of why a bit later. But the whole performance from every man, yes, we didn't score a try. Yes, we didn't sparkle in attack. But the spirit and the backs against the wall when Curry has been sent off, down to 14 men, and how we defended, how physical we were, which we haven't seen from an England team in, I don't know when, since. Like, we haven't seen that performance over 80 minutes, the physicality. And I called a few of them out before the game, didn't I, about Courtney Laws. I called a few of them out before the game, didn't I? Some of the big names, Ellis Genge, Mara Itoje. Courtney Laws was outstanding. These guys stood up. Manu Tuilagi was physical as you like. Every player, experienced player that hasn't been performing, and they haven't, stepped up to the plate. And I said it, hopefully a new environment, a World Cup, something about it. All the World Cup experience that they've got from previous years came to the fore, and it was a proper gritty English performance, forward dominance. We didn't change how we played at all in terms of, people go, oh yeah, we didn't score a try. Didn't need to score a try, because the way the game panned out, George Ford led with a perfect game plan, perfect execution for what was in front of him, how the game, and that's a 10's job, right? See how the game's going and adapt to your game plan, play to your game plan, or adapt it if needed. And everything he did was pinpoint, accurate. He was one of the crazy stats I saw, 11 carries. He was our biggest ball carrier. No, he's our smallest bloke probably, apart from Alex Mitchell, who I thought did really well at 9. And it was a performance to get the England fans going, get them happy, get them right behind the team, the energy in the stadium. And it was brilliant. I was hosting for Charles Tyrwhitt in Covent Garden in the Tyrwhitt Arms, and the atmosphere around there was class as well. So the World Cup launched for England, and there's been a lot of doom and gloom. You can't get away from it, because that was based on our performances, but it was a whole new level. And yes, some people are going, Argentina was shite. Yes, they were. They'll never play that badly again, Argentina, I don't think. The errors they made, countless errors, the mistakes, and the poor sods, right? It starts, we've played against Argentina, Jim. You know how passionate they are. I knew the game was won for England when I watched their anthem, because they've butchered anthems all at the start of the World Cup, and the Argentinians were like looking at each other. There was none of that fire in them, was there? And that's how they sing their anthem, passionately. You see the odd tear, and they were like, what's going on here? And at that point, I'm like, we're good, boys. The Argentinians, the anthem was messed up. And then maybe they sat back and thought they're down to 14 men, they can do what they want, but they made loads of errors, threw England pressure. And it was, in that scenario, the perfect performance by George Ford and England, without lighting the touch paper of scoring tries from here, there and everywhere. Sometimes you don't need to win games. And if you win, as an England fan, if we win every game like that and we win a World Cup, then great. I'm not saying we are going to do that, and we're going to need a lot more to beat some of the bigger teams. But, geez, it was a hell of a step up and a hell of a start for us in a high-pressure game, which now means we're in a quarter-final pretty much.
It does. And we've got to give a few notes on Argentina, who were woeful. I've not seen Argentina play that bad, I'd say, ever. Like, I haven't witnessed that. And you do wonder, a couple of things going into that. The hype, because they were favourites. The championship, playing so well in there at points that it's only England. You're trying to unravel a performance like that. I mean, Michael Checker's press conference, which was hard to consume after, and this is a reflection of me, not him or the press conference, because it was kind of done in Spanish. There was overlaid with Spanish and English.
Underlay.
Arriba. I don't even know if that's a thing now. But yeah, you've got to question that performance. Like Julian Montoya, the captain at Leicester with Borthwick, the line-out didn't function. Is that because of Borthwick's influence, understanding the psyche of Julian Montoya? I really don't know. But Argentina, when we talked them up before, I think we might have referenced it last week as well, the physicality, the players that they've got, we just mentioned the captain, Montoya there, Matera in the back row.
Kremer's a beast.
Kremer, the physicality.
Didn't see him though.
Exactly, you didn't see him. Like, we were talking about Maro, and again, Goody mentioned that as well about Maro last week. Hasn't been at his very best. Needed to see something. Completely outplayed him physically. That was an England performance in terms of what you come to expect of years gone by. Physically bullying teams, kicking on point, and we've said England at World Cups, they've got a way of doing things and coming back, and they needed something to spark the energy and spark the adrenaline. I tell you now, Manu Tuolangi is so important to that team. And then there's questions, and you'll probably ask this question soon, Andy Rowe, about when and if Farrell comes back into the mix. Do you look at now moving Manu across and putting Faz at 12? I don't know. I still don't think it works, but what it does show is that when Manu's pissed off and he's been called out, probably for not the first time ever, but the spotlight is on him, probably his last World Cup. Well, it is his last World Cup, let's just say. And you need to do something, mate. And my goodness me, he's unstoppable when he's got the bit between his teeth. And I think England, I like England. I like watching England play well. And whenever we've seen that, Manu plays. He's so important to that team.
You say you like England, Jim. I think I should probably do this to the masses, should I? So
Yes,
Jim
please.
sent me a voice note on Saturday after the game.
God, what was it?
Jim says he loves England. And now, this was before Scotland lost to South Africa as well. But the masses need to hear this. This is Jim Hamilton saying basically, he ain't Scottish anymore, he's English. This is what he sent me post-match.
Oh, God.
Told you, mate, I told you we'd win. I mean, England would win.
That's not me.
We, James, we.
That's not me. That's not my voice.
Are you sure?
Oh, look, I'm a quarter English. I'm not anti-English. I'm not one of those true Scotsmen who hates the English. I like England, and I think it's important for the World Cup. Actually, do you want me to be honest with you?
Yes, James.
I was so embarrassed that I made them comments last week that I felt redemption and relief that England beat Argentina and showed that I actually do know a little bit about rugby. Because all my other predictions haven't come true.
No, true, actually. Very true. It's interesting, though. You talked about the kicking, Jim. Here's a stat for all our listeners. England kicked 96% of their possession.
Really?
So we had, hell of a stat when I was looking back. So we had, just looking at that, England had 45 bits of possession, of which we kicked 43 of them. Like, what a stat that is when you're looking at things. And obviously things led to penalties, but 43 kicks out of 45 possessions.
So boring. Is that what you're saying?
No. Intelligence around game management, game understanding. George Ford absolutely led the charge on that. And then you go back to the Owen Farrell thing, and I tweeted about it on Saturday. Of course I did. Farrell's an unbelievable player, but whenever he's involved, whenever he plays, there's a shadow over whether it's George Ford at 10, whether it's Marcus Smith, wherever you're playing him. And Faz's best position is 10. If you shift him to 12 and then drop Marchant, who I thought Marchant played really well at 13 because you've got to play Manu. I'm just thinking it doesn't suit Farrell, but maybe if we're just going to play this way, it does suit the way the team wants to play under Steve Borthwick, and maybe that is a positive. But it just showed with George Ford, without having that shadow of Farrell over him, can run a team on his own unbelievably well and manage a game with sort of world-class abilities. The drop goals, those two drop goals, I know he got 3, but the 2 long ones in the first half just suckered the life out of Argentina. And by the way, one's from just inside his own half and one's from about a metre inside the Argentinian half. You will never see 2 better back-to-back drop goals in such a high-pressure environment in your life. How well they were struck, the composure, the understanding of actually 3 points here, 3 points there. And yeah, people will go, oh, it's really boring, 3, 6, 9. That's how you win games sometimes in World Cups. And that's what it takes to nut out victories when things are going against you. And he was world class. Those drop goals, I had a bit of a semi when I saw them, I'll be honest, lads.
And also mentally, because, when you concede a drop goal or a penalty, it's different when you're under the pump and it's almost like a pressure reliever. But these weren't, were they? These were like that he was taking them from 50 metres. So it was just free money for England.
Say that in your Kiwi accent. Say free money in your Kiwi accent, please.
Free money?
Free money? Say it loud. Shout it.
Free money. What's wrong with my accent?
Oh, you're too posh. No, as in it's like, who says free money? Like, as in Kiwi say it, but you don't say it in that way. You say it in a more kind of free money. I've just done it.
Goody, the card situation, I know you want to talk about it. Just also, on a bigger scale as well, England have got an issue with it. 4 reds, 4 yellows in their last 6 tests. How do they stop the cards coming for a start?
Good question. The obvious one is just lowering the tackle. Obviously we've seen Farrell's one, we've seen Tom Curry's one from the weekend. Freddie Stewart's was a little bit different. And then Billy against Ireland again was for a high shot. Now, the coaches aren't coaching go high, but Tom Curry's one, and everyone's like, oh, the game's gone. The issue for Tom Curry, and we'll debate other ones in a bit, the issue for Tom Curry is, and I've been saying it on here for years, people talk about line speed and defence. Line speed, when you're flying up, and this is from a kick chase, and you can see he's accelerated into the tackle. Now, yes, you need to pick and choose when you accelerate, because by the way, when we're talking about this, we're talking about high shots, Josh Adams didn't accelerate into his tackle at the weekend, which was absolutely ridiculous. He was stood still and went through with the power. So you don't actually have to accelerate into tackles. What you do by accelerating into tackles and trying to get the jump on a player with your line speed is you leave yourself at risk of being upright and not having that reaction time to dip low. And I genuinely believe it's a red card. He's got a clear line of sight. We saw what JP Doyle said on ITV and given a referee's description around it. And to me, it's a red card. He's put himself in that position by flying up, accelerating into the tackle, being upright, and then there's a head collision. So everything points to him being at fault. People are like, oh, Juan Cruz Malia, he ducked down. I said, no, he didn't. He came down from a kick. And Elliot Daly, by the way, who's part of the tackle, has given the perfect tackle technique, shown Curry what he should have done. So the issue is, and it's 2 minutes into a game, Curry's been out for a long time. He is a bundle of energy when he plays, but you have to sometimes temper that and not always try and smash everyone. You have to have a tackle selection that means you're not going to be in trouble. You're not going to have a high shot. Sometimes you just dip and get under and lose the collision potentially, or have a neutral collision, because by flying out the line with a clear line of sight and trying to smash someone like that, you do leave yourself the danger of being too high at the last second. He didn't have time to dip, and therefore it's his own fault. So I do believe it's a red card, and we'll get onto the others afterwards around Jesse Creel and everything like that. But it is a massive shame. Will he get a ban? I think he will. Probably be something like 3 weeks, maybe down to 2 if he does tackle school. Faz can take him to that as well. But everyone's saying the game's gone. This is ridiculous. Blah blah blah. This has been going on for years now. This is not something new that's just been brought in. It's been going on for years around trying to reduce the tackle height, and you can't get away from all the optics of how it looked. He's upright in a tackle with force, accelerating into a tackle with a clear line of sight, and he's caused a head collision that's opened him and Juan Cruz Malia up.
Jim, why do you think it is that players are still getting this wrong and haven't changed their technique?
I know the answer. And it's not what people want to hear, because they think it's easy. And I was doing this in a room full of a few people when we were talking about it. I was getting quite heated. Now, there's clearly a lot of confusion. Different games are showing different things. Different referees are looking at different things. So there's clearly not a joined up process yet. That's frustrating. I get that. I see that. I'm a part of it. Then social media comes out and there's a trial by social media. A lot of people disagree with what Goody's saying. Goody's got his opinion. And we're talking about loads of different frameworks, and we're looking at positions, and we're thinking about how it could have happened, and we're trying to justify from both sides. So it's almost like an open forum for discussion, which is fine. Yeah. We're allowed to do that.
Is.
Absolutely.
And And on that, my opinion is based on the law and based on what we've seen refereed and how things have been written by World Rugby effectively.
Yeah, and we say that, but then you look on other things and it looks differently. So that's the frustration in that. And look, I don't want to get involved. This has got nothing to do with my World Rugby job. This has got to do with, we're talking about every week. Like every single week and every single game, it's like, look at this, look at that. And that's absolutely fine. I just choose not to go down that route. But I will say, and I was chatting to my mate who works in jiu-jitsu and works in wrestling and looks at body position stuff around functional movement. To get down in that position is a very difficult thing. It's an unnatural position to be in. Okay, some players can do it naturally and exceptionally. You look at chop tacklers, just to name a few. You look at Sia Khaleesi, you look at Jamie Ritchie, you look at Richie McCaw of years gone by, you look at Sam Underhill, you look at Courtney Laws as a tall man as well. Some players can do it. It's ingrained in them for years. Genetically, athletically, they are good in that position. But there's a number of players that aren't good in that position. I'm not saying that Tom Curry isn't. Bit of an anomaly because he actually is really good in that position. But when you're running up, okay, there's a ball in the air, to get down into that position in a split second, it isn't easy. And I say it's not easy because there needs to be some justification. And this isn't me saying it's a red card or a yellow card. I'm just talking about the position of it. People are like, he needs to get lower. He needs to get this. Yeah, he does. But he hasn't. And he's yet another player that hasn't got low. And we're talking about a matter of inches. If he was a couple of inches lower, we wouldn't be talking about it. But it's not an easy position to get into every single time. You just shoot down and you put your head down and you're in a vulnerable position when you're like that and you're doing it in a way of you're having to think, oh, I need to get lower and back out of this because you protected yourself. You are more protected as a player when you're stood, you've got your head up, you've got your chest up, and you can only listen to me. So it's really difficult for me to show you. But you got to keep asking yourself, everyone's like, the players need to change what they do. They need to change. Okay, well, that's one side of the argument. The other side of the argument is there's an acceptance, well, there's an issue why they're not changing, so therefore you need to deal with that separately. Yes, we can keep talking about it, and in England it's glaringly obvious that there's an issue with their tackle height because of the stats that you've just reeled out and the fact that Owen has been banned, Billy's been banned, Manu's had history before. So I understand what you're saying, and other teams don't have that. But I'm just saying that the mechanism sometimes isn't easy as people think, like the Jesse Creel one. Like, he hasn't meant to go high. Tom Curry's not meant to go high. It's just happened in an instant. And that's what I'm looking at from the player's point of view.
Yeah, I understand that, Jim. But there's a responsibility on the players to not, like Jesse Creel's one, if we're going to go there straight away, which I'm happy to, that's a complete red card, 100%. He has flown out the line at speed to try and stop an attacking play and get someone man and ball, and he's got it wrong and gone, he's upright into a tackle. If he steadied his feet 3 or 4 metres before the impact, he can then sink lower. But this is my point of line speed and everyone just trying to get off the line as fast as you can leads to a lot of these issues. And yes, you've got to have line speed, but there's got to be an understanding from the players to the risk reward. Yes, the reward is you smash someone and you win the collision and you're driving back and everyone cheers. But that's the reward to it. The risk of it is you get it wrong by 2 or 3 inches, you're off the field. So is the risk worth the reward by flying up all the way to the tackle? Or is it fly up, steady your feet, and then prep for a tackle? Where players, we've seen players, Tom Curry would have won that collision had he not have even accelerated the last metre and gone in upright. Had he have steadied his feet and not accelerated into the collision, he'd have still won the collision because he's a hell of a tackler. And we've seen him chop low for years. Courtney Laws does it all the time. So it is possible, but I do get your frustration of how hard it is to change. But unfortunately, if World Rugby or whoever give up now and say, okay, there's going to be these instances, so we'll just let it go, then nothing's ever going to change. And I get stick off people when there's a red card for an opposition player and they go, oh, if that was an England player, you'd say it's play on. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to be consistent in what the laws are trying to be applied. And maybe if there is an issue, those laws need changing. But
do you not think there's an argument as well? And this isn't me going against you, Goody, by the way. This is me calling out ITV. So I watched the Japan-Chile game. I thought Chile were brilliant, by the way.
How about their fullback?
Yeah, they were wicked. Physical. I know they got hammered in the end. But the halftime analysis of the Japan and Chile game was about a high tackle or a potential high yellow tackle. And I'm thinking, well, I've not picked that up. Not that that means it's right or wrong, but you're highlighting something that I don't think needs to be highlighted because it hasn't been given. So therefore, your casual fan hasn't seen it. Why don't we show clips of like unbelievable play by Chile about some of the nuances of the game, like educate people about the short lines that they're running, the physicality in their carries, the kicking game that they brought, the fullback, which Andy Rowe referenced. It's almost like we're feeding the beast in the media. Like that was and that's one thing for me. And this is, oh my gosh, I've gone all nicey nice and like, but I genuinely feel like there's an exhaustion around us being the main point of contact and call to rugby. The fact that we're talking about it now, we have to talk about it until things change and we get some clarity in what we're doing. But I just saw that Japan-Chile game, and because I'm working for ITV, I'm like, why are we? There's no need to highlight that. Like, no one's seen that, and now it's just a debate about nothing because we go to our phones as opposed to actually enjoying what the game was about and the physicality and the speed in which Chile played. It's just a bugbear at the minute. Look, I might change, but that's where I'm at the minute.
A question on that for you then, Jim, and I completely understand your point and get it. There is a short amount of time to do analysis at halftime because we've got to get all the woke adverts in for ITV. But what I do mean is, from a Scotland South Africa perspective, at the weekend, Jesse Creel's won in the first half. You're a Scotland fan. And you said it yourself. I'm watching it, and I've watched a lot of the games this weekend. I'm like, where's the replays? Like, it shows how well other companies run rugby games when they're put on TV, because you've got producers that work in it week in, week out. And I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. I don't know who the producers are, whatever. Who's in charge of the feed? Is it the French directors? Whatever it is. But you said it yourself. You're on commentary. You didn't get a replay. Now, it's the biggest talking point coming out of that game. Greg has talked about it after the game. Would it have changed how things panned out? I'm not sure. But at half-time, if you're a Scotland fan, you want to see that analysis. You want to see the replay and go, what should have happened here, from experts that have been there and done it. I think that's what if I'm a viewer, that's what I want to see. But I also want to see someone monstering someone. I want to see an amazing try. I want to see man in the box, no-look, crossfield kick. So it's trying to squeeze everything into that short amount of time because we have to throw to the adverts that no one watches, but needed to pay the bills.
Pod.
Rugby pod.